And then we also need to find solutions. It's all well and good for us to then understand what it is and how it occurs. But what are the solutions that are special to the environments that we live in? It's Nigeria, we know Nigeria is special needs itself. So what are those solutions that, learning from what people are doing elsewhere, can we adopt, can we adapt for our peculiar environments? So we have some wonderful people joining us today. And I'll let you know who they are, give you a little brief intro while everybody is still coming in, so you kind of know who is giving us some knowledge, some expertise, sharing today. So our speakers, we have quite a few speakers. We have retired Air Vice Marshal Femi Badebo, and he's an officer of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, a parent of a child with special needs, an experienced caregiver, and a specialist in the management of cerebral palsy. And he also has a nickname, Granola Boss. Badebo also has a particular passion for motivating and mentoring parents of children with special needs, youth and adolescents, as well as anyone aspiring to be better in their lot. We have joining us in Elizabeth also Mrs. Dotun Akonde. She's the founder of Patrick Speech and Language Center. She's a qualified behavior analyst and autism specialist, with Patrick's being the first Nigerian autism center to be registered with the International Board of Credentialing and Continuing Education. She is really kind of a powerhouse in autism arena, and especially in the areas of speech, language, and communication. Then we have Dr. Bose Salami, Chief Superintendent of Police. She also, would you believe it, this is how amazing our speakers are today. She is a dental surgeon, which amazes me, but she's a Chief Superintendent of Police. Sorry there, should I put my phone on mute? And she'll be here really sharing her knowledge of what the police system is like and how we can combine solutions for our environment. She is a chairman or chairwoman of the Committee on Police Affairs, NMN Lagos, a member of Lagos State Implementation Team on Harm Reduction Program. And I think that's really important to know that we have someone of that caliber on the team on Harm Reduction Program, because here we really want to see how we can get the police involved in when these children wander, and in order for their safety to be paramount. So along that line, we also have Police Sergeant at the Met. You know, the Met is the Metropolitan Police London, and that's Police Sergeant Paul Ohiere. Paul, I'm just going to ask you to wave because we're very excited to have you here. Lillian, if I could just ask you to mute, thank you so much. Now, he has served, that's Police Sergeant Paul Ohiere, has served as a policeman for at least 21 years and also holds an LLB in law from the University of Kent. Very happy to have you here with us, sir. Now we have Yvonne Odukwe also, and she's the director of Autism Hidden Voices UK. She's an experienced account assistant with a demonstrated history of working in the civic and social organization industry, skilled in bank recon, office admin, accounting, so many things, but her specialty is in autism. And then we have our wonderful chairman of Special Needs Moms, Mrs. Esther Sule Okeogo, see me even spoiling your name. And she is really just the most amazing parent in sharing her journey, what she's learned, her knowledge, and really helping other parents through this journey with not just words, actually practical things you can do to immediately help your child. She's a parent of a wonderful boy, Ziza, with autism, and she's passionate about improving the lives of people with autism in Nigeria. So that's just really a brief summary of the level of speakers that we have here today. Thank you, speakers, for joining us. And so let's look at this topic. I think that we all have our concepts of what wandering is. And it's really to kind of understand how it varies on individuals, and the level of what occurs, the occurrency of which it happens, why it happens, which people are likely to wander. Is it every special needs child, do they wander? Who wanders? Is there a way to preempt it and prevent it even before they wander? Is there something we can do to minimize that behavior before the person wanders? So maybe there are things we can recognize that we can put into place when we recognize those signals that we can put into place to prevent. And what can we do as parents to keep our children safe? So initially, I wanted to start with Mrs. Dosun Akonde, but I think we're still waiting for her to come in, excuse me. So I think actually I will flip it, and I want to, let's start with the personal experience. I think I'm going to flip it to you, Esther, and let's actually start with your story. And I think that will personalize it for everybody here. And then we can go into the official what is wandering. So let's just hear your story and what your experiences have been of wandering.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Tanya, for the introduction. We don't have much time, so I'll just go straight to the point. So as the moderator rightly said, I'm a mom to a 14-year-old who happens to be on the spectrum. And I thought it was important for us to have a conversation like this because it's something that I have experienced. My son has, let's say he used to be a runner. That's what they are called. He used to be a runner. At every opportunity, you know, he would just take off running. And at first we just thought he was just energetic, but then it now went from running in, you know, public places to, you know, leaving the house. So we actually lost him like twice. The first time he left the house on a Sunday, and funny enough, he walked to his auntie's house, and it took us a while to find him. Thankfully, she was able to call us to say, hey, are you people looking for Ziza? And we had to head down to their house, and somebody who knew him. So again, he got to the house, and then somebody who recognized him, you know, kind of led him into his auntie's house and handed him over to her. So we were lucky in that instance. The second time, he actually left the house. He had learned to open the door, and he left the house without anyone's knowledge. And if you live in Lagos, you know how scary this may sound. He left jumped over the estate fence. We live in an estate, so it's a gated community, obviously. He left the house, scaled the fence, and went to the beach. And he got to the beach and then jumped into the Atlantic Ocean. And we were happy that somebody, just a stranger who happened to be out that early, it was around 8 o'clock or thereabouts on a Saturday morning, jumped into the ocean and was able to rescue him and, got him out. And it took hours before, we didn't know where he was anyway, and it took hours before we were able to locate him. We just were asking around, and by the time we got to him, there was a crowd around him. And again, we were just thankful to God that he was alive. You all know with me that the ocean is not a match for a child. The currents were really, really strong. And from the stories we heard, even the person who brought him out was kind of like surprised that they were able to make it out of the ocean. So again, I'm very passionate about all things autism. I believe that we use our experiences to help others as well. When we tell our stories, others are able to learn from it, and so they don't repeat the same mistakes thereabout. And also sharing our stories will also help us as a community to anticipate when these things happen, and also to find solutions to them. So I felt that it would be good to collaborate with the speakers that we have here on today to bring awareness to it. It's something, every other day I'm on social media and I see all the pages of parents who have autistic kids, people who run organizations that help people with autism. There's always one picture of the other of a child who has gone missing. And for the most part, at least from what I know, it's usually like a community of people just sharing pictures, sharing information, and just praying that the child is found. So I just wanted us to have this conversation. And at the end of the day, I'm just hoping that we have something to take away from it, that somebody who has a child who is a runner will be able to take, measures to make sure that that doesn't happen. What happened to me doesn't happen to them. God forbid, at least my story ended up with good results, but some other kids have died just by wandering away. So I'm hoping that at the end of the conversation that we have lots of positives to take away. I think I'll stop here and let the experts do their job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think you make a great point in that we do see these pictures on social media, we do share, and but there seems so very little we can do apart from that. So I think this is really important to get some strategies that we can actually learn, but also share with our individual communities and spread the word. These are actually things you can do in this situation. Posting the picture and sharing it on social media is great. Well, what else can we do to help in a practical way? And so let's go back to the top, right? We need to actually understand what wandering is. We all have a concept of what it is in our heads, but really, I'm gonna ask the experts here, Mr. Toto Akonde, who I've already introduced. Welcome.
Thank you.
And please, if you can, tell us as lay people, right? We don't have your certifications, qualifications. So we are depending on your vast experience and knowledge to help us better understand what is wandering, what is, as Esther says, what does it mean to be a runner? That's the first time I'm hearing that they call them runners. So it would be really great for us to try and just better understand the concept of what we're dealing with, what it is and what we're dealing with. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you very, very much. Thank you for inviting me today. Good morning, everyone. This is a topic that we have never really spoken about. And so it's more or less like Tonya said, I hope I'm the expert that is needed to do this job. So when we talk about wandering, I have a lot of experience when it comes to wandering. First of all, I I lost my son at the airport. I remember when he was very young. And what I found quite interesting was that when I was looking for him, I noticed that I was looking for him alone. Each time I would ask, did you see my son? Everybody would just shake their head and walk past. Nobody actually stood with me to say that, oh, what was he wearing? How do we help you? Nobody was there at that point in time. And I found that it can be a lonely road when it comes to wandering. So when we talk about wandering, what exactly is wandering? What can we say is wandering? What can we put into perspective that this child is wandering? It's kind of like an elopement. Oh, the child was here right now, and then all of a sudden we can't find him. And our children are very, very fast at running, very fast at getting missing, very fast at just being out of touch with us, no matter how much we try, to keep them by our side. I know what brought this together was what brought this home, more importantly, was the fact that we got an individual, a very young mother, I would say, or she's no longer young, talk about how parents were strapping their children. And I mean, it was an insensitive conversation. I'm sure if she looks back now, she would not ever want to make that kind of statement ever again without understanding what we go through as parents. So wandering is simply the child going missing. In layman's language, the child is missing. The child was here and now no longer here. And the more severe it is for children with autism, the more likelihood that they would wander. So it has to do with severity. Coming from, if you look at statistics and how Autism Speaks has been able to put the statistics into perspective, wandering is more common in children that have severe autism. So when the child, and that means that that child is not able to communicate his needs to either the parents or the people in the community. So in Nigeria, fortunately, every child that has gone missing, we have found. I'm not really sure why. I can't really say why, but I would pin it down to the fact that our community is still very traditional. We don't mind our business when we see children. We make it a point of duty to be involved, to say, why is this child here? The last child that got missing, I think it was about last month or so, or 2 months ago, a lady found that child and kept that child in her house. She said, and one day somebody is coming to look for the child, and she was feeding the child. She didn't even go to the police station to report it. So you can imagine that is how much involved we are in other people's business. So when we say Nigerians are tatafo, is it a good thing? It looks like sometimes it can be a good thing, not minding our business and caring. Where are you coming from? That's our traditional community living is still embedded in our foundation. So that is one of the reasons we found all our children. The longest that I know that a child has been missing for in our community is 45 days. That child left Lagos and was found somewhere in Osun State. And he walked because people kept seeing him in different areas and communities. Oh, I saw him walking past here. So they kept going until they found him 45 days later in another town. So you can imagine how dangerous it is. And that was in the days when we didn't have kidnapping and all these things and organ harvesting in place. You can imagine now how scary it would have been for the parents, to have seen that. So why, when we talk about wandering, what should we be looking at? Why is the child wandering? Why? The first thing we want to look at is the environment for that child is not conducive. He's looking for a safe place. He's looking for an escape. Is either escaping a sensory stimuli or seeking a sensory stimuli. And when they are escaping, they want to live in that environment and want to go to a quiet place where they can they can be calm, where their emotions they can manage their emotions. And when they are seeking things that keeps them calm. So if the child is seeking, you probably will find the child near water, near green vegetation, where there's a lot of space where the child can run around. So you need to understand that child. So when we are looking for the children, there are certain questions we need to ask the parents. What personality does your child have? What are his interests? What does he love and enjoy? These are some of the questions that we should be asking the parents when we are looking for that child that has gone away. Another reason could be that the child enjoys the other environment that he was in. So maybe they had lived somewhere before, the place had good vegetation, he grew up in that environment, he loved that environment. We found that when we are looking for them, we trace our step back to the old environment. I know Bolanle can talk about how our son walked from I think it was went to their old house in VGC. He was found around VGC area. He was going back to the house where they were before, where he could ride his bicycle. He was riding. In this new place, the place was like not as pleasant, or not, he didn't understand the terrain, but in that other area, he understood the terrain. Also, one of our children walked out of our estate in Lekki. We found him at the Lekki, that was Chevron Drive. We found him in Lekki roundabout. He rode his bicycle. He was riding around the roundabout until a parent grabbed him and took him to the police station. You know, so sometimes they go to where they have been before, where they are comfortable. They saw him around his old house, where he had lived, the people that he had grew up with, how he enjoyed that environment. We must also look for them around such areas. And then it could be that the child wants to be chased, just likes running, and is looking for somebody to play tag with him. You know, so those are some of the reasons why our children kind of wander off. Now, how can we help the parents in terms of safety? What do we need to put in place to support that we know would always wander? The first thing we need to do is probably have a bracelet with the child's name or something that states that I have autism and a phone number where they can be reached. Another thing that we can put in place is in their shoe, on their shoes, the shoes that they wear regularly, we have their names and this same phone number tucked in the shoelace. Then we teach the children safety measures, the children themselves. For instance, we need to teach them how to swim. We need to teach them how to look out for cars, because sometimes during another child that got missing left Ikorodu, well-dressed young man. They had dressed him up, ready for the day. The mother went into the room to get something. She came back out. Voila, the boy was gone. We were tracing this boy's footsteps. By the time we found him in, I think we found him in Obalende in Lagos, a car hit him. He was walking on the road and a car hit him. And they called Lagos State Ambulance. The ambulance took him from that Obalende to Lagos Hospital. General Hospital in Lagos Island. And by the time we found him, they had changed his clothes. They wore him rags. Somebody had taken off all his nice clothes and given him rags to wear. And when he got into the hospital, they didn't know what it was because they kept asking him, what is your name? What is your name? They did not understand that he's a non-verbal child. So until one of the doctors picked up the newspaper, we actually advertised it in the newspaper at that time, and was reading about a child that was missing. So he started putting two and two together and he said, oh, that is the child in the ward that is not speaking. And then contacted the phone number that we put on the papers. And then the parents came in. The minute that boy sighted his mother, it was like he saw Jesus Christ. He rose from his bed, ran to his mom, hugged his mom with a broken arm. And the people in the hospital said, why is he not talking? They said, he has autism, he's nonverbal. They didn't even understand what it meant that he had autism, he's nonverbal. So
Mrs. Akonde, I think that you really hit several nails on the head, right? So we've got, I think, a clear understanding of what it means. I think when you say that they're seeking something, they're looking for something. So they're just not getting up and just la 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 la, you know, let's take a wander. They're actually wanting to soothe. They're wanting to find comfort. They're seeking something, which as a parent, immediately in my head, it says, okay, what can I do about the environment that we are to reduce, you know, that's what immediately my mind went to. So that understanding is that they're just not wandering for the sake of wandering. They are wandering because they're trying to satisfy a need, whether it's sensory, and that to make the environment in which they are wanting to leave something a little bit better to, you know, reduce that behavior. I think it was really also interesting to see that, to hear you say that there's certain environments that trend, right? So near water, open space, green spaces, you know, you immediately think of something like tranquility, peace. So again, that's soothing, that going out to find that peace. And I think you already got ahead of us, but I loved those ideas you said about the bracelets, putting the information. It's really so easy to do. Things that are actually tangible that every parent can actually do. And so I think it's very hopeful. So I want to throw the baton to Yvonne, who is our other autism expert with the Hidden Voices group. And she's based out in the UK. Am I correct? You're based out in the UK. You're wearing a sweater. So all you people wearing sweater, I'm assuming you're in Ghana.
It's raining and it's cold.
British summer, it's raining. It's normal now.
If you can get me home, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I'm trying not to sweat.
Hello, everybody. Yeah.
We're so happy to have you here and for you to really, you know, take on what Mr. Konde has said, but tell us how it's working in your environment and how, because you do have systems, you do have things that people can do. And I think the tradition of our culture is a positive here, but the culture is different here. It's different where you are. And you have to think about racism, you have to think about prejudice, you have to think about those things that factor into how our children of color are treated in this wandering situation. So if you can tell us really about what happens when a child wanders out there, you know, what you do and what does the society around do?
Well, I was making some notes when she was talking, and that's very interesting. I just want to add a bit to what she said so that everybody actually gets a more rounded picture. Everything she said is spot on, but wandering is actually a behavioral occurrence. So with behavior, we find that actually it could be any child on the spectrum, not just those that are on the severe. We've had children that are not severe that are wandering. So it's a behavioral occurrence rather than it being focused on, because if you focus it on the severity, you're going to miss out the children who are not severe, but then they wander, because we do have children that wander. So it's a behavioral occurrence, and it's the tendency for children to leave a safe space, like she said, and go somewhere else. And in the process of that, they expose themselves to danger. Now, yes, like she rightly said, they do it to escape somewhere because they find they are in a stressful situation or they are frightened. But also, they also do it to go to a place of interest, which she rightly said, the green fields, the water. Trains, autism and trains. A lot of autistic children like trains. So train tracks are actually one of the first port of calls to actually look for an autistic child. We're not just talking about water, we're talking about train tracks. You know, it has to do with the interest of the child. So every parent knows, like if your child gets missing, the parent should have a list, a checklist of the interest of the child. What does the child like? And then you go and look for the child in those areas, because you know, when you have your child in the car and you're doing your school run also, these children, they see these lovely places that they want to go to or they've been to, and they actually record it in their brain. So when they wander out of the house, They're actually looking for that place because they want to play or for whatever reasons, you know. So I think based on that, we want to talk about what parents can do. And I think, first of all, let's start with the home. I think every parent will start with the home. First of all, talk about securing your home, you know, your doors, your windows, you know, putting in locks, alarms, you know, making sure that the house is secured, because a child that will wander would probably go through the door. If the door is locked, they will go through the window. We've had children climbing through the window. So first and foremost, you know, you need to secure your house, put things in place in your house. The second thing I would suggest is inform family members and friends that you've got a child that wanders. Unfortunately, with wandering can come at any time. So there's never like a pre-warning with wandering. You know, you don't really know that your child is a wanderer until an event has actually taken place. And it's funny because some children are not wanderers and later on become wanderers. It can happen at any time. Like I said, it depends on the interest. It's a behavioral occurrence. So do we know whether our children can wander is still a big question mark, you know? But when an event has happened, when you see the tendency, when an event has actually happened, then you need to put these things in place, inform your neighbors, your friends, your family and friends, secure the, you know, the house. Another thing is to communicate, teach your child, use communication techniques. If your child is nonverbal, use picture communication, use all sorts of communication to teach the child that if you go here, this is what you need to do and things like that. You know, it's a work in progress, but it can be done. Once the child is taught, they know how to follow instructions when they are taught. Now, the communication in terms of the technology, we talked about wearing the bracelet or putting it in the shoe, like was rightly suggested. Now, we have children who have very sensory issues, you know, that are highly sensory sensory processing disorders that cannot tolerate having a bracelet on, or even probably when they wander, a lot of children that actually wander will take off their shoes. So the problem we have is, what do we do for those children who cannot tolerate anything on their body because of the feeling, because of their sensory issues? And that is something that is still being investigated, even here as we speak. Excuse me. Now, I love the fact that you mentioned in Nigeria, we don't mind our business. I wish people don't mind their business in the UK. It would probably solve a lot of our problems here. But people will see your child wandering and they would not say anything. If it doesn't concern me, nobody's going to talk. And it's round the spectrum, both black and white. It's not even just the white, you know, you mentioned racism and stuff like that. The police, I've actually partnered with the police, and we're actually having this. It's funny that we're having this conversation because we are having the same conversation with the police here. The police are not that knowledgeable about autism as you think they are. The police are not getting it right. You know, we're having, you know, and the reason I partnered with the police is when children are having issues in schools, because the schools cannot handle the children, they literally call the police for the parents. And now we're having a lot of parents, especially the Black families, being criminalized in the process. So our group have now partnered with the police to talk about this criminalization. Now, what they've done is they've appointed a person in the school. When such events happen, then that is the go-to, rather than having to send them to the police station. You understand? So I think that is kind of the same thing we're trying to do. So if there's a safety officer in schools or in anywhere, we need them to actually have this as part of their safety regulations. You know, moving forward, we think if we want to get the police involved, I think it should be a mandatory factor in their safety rules, to have that in every police station, that this occurs. Should you see this, this is what we need to do. This is what you need to do. You know, that's literally all, that's all we could do at the moment. Now in the States, I know they have something called the Sense Kit. What it is you buy this kit, it's they create, they take, I think they rub it on your skin, and it's very peculiar and bespoke per child. So when the child is missing, they get the scent dogs to smell that particular kit. So that kit is bespoke to the the individual, then they get they get the smell dogs in, and then that helps them to also get, to look for the child. Now, I don't know if we have it in the UK, and we're still doing our investigations, but I've seen that in the States as well. So every day people are coming up with different, trying to get different solutions as to what to do with, with their child, so these are the things that are, these are, and I think if you want to know about I think it's called, I can't remember the name, but I'll put it in the chat if I just have to check what the name of that thing is. But like I said, is in the US. So I think in the Nigerian sense of it, not minding your business is actually a bonus. But what we now need to do is we need to involve our families and friends. So yes, let them keep not minding their business. I love that. But get them involved in, please, my child wanders, and then that would help. Because in Nigeria, if you see a child going, somebody will say, where are you going? That is fantastic. We don't have that here, so I think that's me in a nutshell.
So I think you really said some very interesting things. I love the idea of this scent thing. I wish I'd come up with that idea, make lots of money. But it is, everybody has a unique sense. But again, then you also have to have the infrastructure, to have the dogs who are trained to send them. What do they do when they find them before they scare the child or the person, all those things that have in place. But it gives you hope that people are really thinking about how can we practically solve this issue. But it also highlights the fact that each child is different.
Yeah.
So the solution is not the same for every child.
Yeah.
And therefore, we as parents, we need to be proactive. We know our children the best, but we need support. We need help. No man is an island, and we know it takes a village to raise these children. We need to involve our village in practically understanding. So this communication that is not only between you and the child, to teach them, okay, this is what wandering is. Whether you're using visual aids are wonderful. Or whether your child is high functioning. I do not like using that term. And you're able to have verbal communication. You do need to have that, not only with the child, but those people who are in the child's life. So that list you're making in terms of the places of interest or places they love in the past. Your village needs that list.
Yes.
Okay, they need to have the checklist. This is what you do if he or she wanders. Call this person, check here, let's get together. So that you're giving the village practical tools, and you're not doing it alone. Like Mrs. Okonde said when she was at the airport, she was doing it alone. You're not on this journey alone. And I think that as parents, we have to really understand our child to build some unique solutions around them. So this child is gone out in the environment, and they're taking their walkies, exploring their places of interest in their own zone, right?
Yeah.
And then the police are there. So this is where I bring in our Met officer, our chief superintendent, or did I even get the police sergeant, whichever. I love all those Met shows, by the way. So I'm kind of like finding out that you're here. So Officer Paul Ohiere, police sergeant, our Ebo of police, please, in this context, we really would like to know what happens when a child wanders or person wanders and the police find them, what's going on, what's the process, but also what is being done to improve it, and what can we kind of take on board?
Good morning, everybody. As already been introduced, I'm a serving officer within the Met Police, and I work in the city of London. I'm predominantly in Peckham area. For those of you who know London very well, basically, I, as a first respondent, meaning if there is an issue, you dial 999, and the first group of officers that respond to your call is called response officer. Yes, what we do when a child is gone missing in the first place, before we start to differentiate which is autism or other related issues. When the child gets missing, the first thing we would ask the parent to do is where is the place of interest for that child, because we tend to find that a child tend to return to almost the place where they feel safe or something of attraction to them. And also, have you got any recent photograph, or have you got any recent profile of that child? For instance, you know, a lot of people, if you have a child that has got an habit of going missing, have you got last time they were missing, where did they go? And also um, who they were with, what they were wearing, any recent description or any habit. Because when we say habits, one of the speakers spoke earlier about train. If a child is associated with train, and there is a likelihood when they go missing, that is a place of interest, and they are likely to go. When it comes to children with autism, what we find out is like an autistic child wonder because of curiosity. And also, they also have a very weak sense of safety. They have adverse reaction to, or adverse feeling towards safety. They feel they don't have that fear, so they will put themselves in danger. So basically, once we kind of establish the basic profile of that child, we go looking for that child. First place of that child is Ben, and also start putting out communication and start doing what we call door-to-door search for that child. Once we're able to establish, or once that child is found and taken back to a place of safety, that child and the parents is debriefed and also advice given so that we can avoid this happening again. What advice do we give to parents with autism so that we can help them secure and able to locate the child if this does occur again? For example, when a child is gone missing, if it's like, for example, the child and the mom, they're in a public place, for example, in a shopping mall, and if it's a toddler or a younger child, we always advise the parent to seek things like, you know, I don't want to call it like a dog chain or something like that. It's like a bracelet with the chain. It tags the mom or the dad with the child so that they work together. So when they're in public place, you know, toggle the child, or they would know if the child goes missing. And also if it's older children, we tend to advise the use of GPS device. And in the market at the moment, there's quite a lot of different item you could get in the open market. For example, if you're an Apple family, you could get an AirTag. An AirTag is not that expensive. That can be placed in any item of clothing, bags, toy, and the first thing you will know is it kind of narrows out where that child is or where that child is been. So it gives you a place to start looking for. If you know an Apple family, there's also different tag of tag. You could have it in bracelets, you could have it in chains, you could sew it into buttons. There's quite a few in the market. Just Google any GPS for wandering children, and you know, from China, there's quite a lot, up to like £2-3 you could get, and they all work with different mobile device, and it gives you a very quick GPS where that child will be or where that child was last seen. So obviously, it kind of narrows out where to search when the child is gone missing. And also coming back home, we also advise family. I know we don't like the idea of the term prison, but you need to fortify your home so that every aspect of any means that they could use to escape is being averted. You need to put your locks where they child cannot reach. You need to use security window to protect the window from opening all the way. So these are simple and practical things we will advise the family when we go and debrief them once the child is found. And also, we always advise parents to keep a folder of the child behavior, interests, and also any recent picture, just put it there so that it's almost like a grab back. When the child is gone missing, this is almost ready to go. It's handed in. Look, this is my child last week. This is what the child was doing. He likes wearing baseball hat. He likes wearing trainers. So we kind of build a quick picture of the child and also just a brief description if it's a non-verbal or if it's smart. 'Cause some autistic children tend to be hyper hyper like what I usually like academically hyper, so they will learn everything, they will learn, so like numbers of trains or numbers of buses and things like that. So we just need to have those documented in a place so that anybody who sees that photo, you could easily and quickly identify that child. You could picture that child's life quickly.
Well, thank you, Paul. I think that's really given us some kind of practical tools of what happens when you are communicating with parents in this scenario. I like the idea of keeping a folder. I think that's really important. I didn't know these tags can come in other forms where if they have sensory issues, you can pick the one that works for your unique child. I think that again, it's that constantly being on top of it, always having the latest picture. Don't give us a 2-year-old picture, because we need a current picture. What does your child currently look like? And I think that in these days of technology, that's something quite easy for us to constantly have an up-to-date picture of a child, especially if they wander. What we're referring to as a child is like a leash, a child leash, right? You put it on the wrist of the parents and then the wrist of a toddler. Please, I had that with my own child. Like we were constantly leashed because I got tired. But those things are really, really useful for if you have a small child that really likes to just go and be fast. And these children are so fast. Now, what you've told us is from the perspective of, okay, the parent has said the child is missing. They've come to the station, or you've come to them and you've gone through it. Now, what if you're out on the beat and you come across a child who's wandering? You don't know that a child is missing or wandering, but you see this child, right? And it's clear that this child is out on a wander. How do you approach a child on the spectrum who you figured out with your own mind that they're wandering? What do you do in that situation?
When a child is I'll say a child is come to notice, for instance, as you said, on my beats and walking down the street, I find a child who is, I think is out of place. For instance, maybe not wearing shoes or just walking down the road. It would be my duty to stop that child and try to speak to that child until that child is returned to a place of safety. That child becomes my issue. I become the duty. That child, I then owe that child what we call a duty of care. Automatically, I will not leave a child on its own. As an officer, that child must be taken into a place of safety, and that could be taking that child back to the police station or the nearest school if we are not able to identify where the child lives. When I say school, if it's school during the school time, and there is suspicion that that child might be from one of the local school, then that child will be returned to that school to make further inquiry to see if that child is of that school. If not, that child would automatically be taken into a place of safety, which will be at the police station, where further inquiry will start so that we're able to then locate where that child belongs.
So what if, okay, majority of the time, these children are, you know, interverbal, or they have very little speech. They have a different way of communicating. And then sometimes in such situation, they, especially if they are older children, can become aggressive, right? So they're feeling anxiety, and we know that sometimes it's part of autism. At times, the children can become aggressive. How do you deal with an aggressive child, especially if they appear older than they actually are? You know, our children are large, are Greek. So, you know, they might actually be, it may look at like 14, but the child may only be 10. How do you deal with that scenario? Because as a police officer, you also have to think about your own safety. So what if, you know, this child at this point doesn't understand, is having a meltdown, is becoming aggressive? How do you approach that scenario?
From what you just described, you know, without sugarcoating it, it is a very big issue within the Black community, because this has led to a lot of kids being criminalized because of not understanding the social reason of their aggression. And personally, I have learned a lot by dealing with autistic children. So it is something for me, but still out there, it is still a very big problem within the policing community, how to fully understand these kids without, and deal with them without criminalizing them.
So in that situation, how do you pull them out of safety? You would have to use some kind of restraint, some kind of force, essentially, to secure yourself and to secure them, to get them to a point where you can take them to a safe place and then investigate. That's what I'm just assuming would be, you know, what would happen.
You're partially right. Basically, you know, it's when when a person is being violent, that person will be, there will be definitely need to restrain this person and take them to a place of safety. If you're able to identify as a child, you know, it's easy to try to bring them to social service attention to it. And also, if it's something we think is a mental health related, and that instead of taking that person back to the station, we will take that person to a hospital. So the issue,
Go ahead.
no, I was going to say the issue of restraint, that is an issue of necessity. That will not be a blanket to use, but that will be, you know, a call according to what you are presented with.
Yeah, I think that is very well said on your part. Are there things Yvonne, for example, is working with the police to put in a program? Are there things in your experience now that are being worked, that are being in the coming months, in the coming years, that they're specifically working on in your district, with your community? What is being done to kind of bring the community closer to the police and helping each other deal with this? How's the training going for police officers in this area as well?
I think it's the main issue is creating awareness, because the awareness is still of very major issue. A lot of issues when it comes to autism is still very much thought of as bad behavior or rudeness and things like that. It's understanding the child and understanding the fact that autism can be a big influence rather than the child trying to be rude to you. At the moment, every officers, we're on our internet page, there is things to do with autism, meltdown, burnout, and their first respondents, leaflets, links to all different society within the autistic community, And also we have like guest speaker coming to training school to speak to officers regarding their past issues, and also you get victim or a child to come and express their concern and how they would like to be treated.
Sure. So I think, you know, what gives me hope here, because now I think we can take what you said from what we feel is probably a more structured society, a more proactive society in dealing with this, and now look at what is happening in Nigeria, because we have Chief Superintendent of Police, Dr. Bose Salami here as well, who I still have to say, let everybody know she's also a dental surgeon. So that just blows my mind also. So she's smart and she's here for us doing her duty for the public. So Dr. Bose, taking everything that we've heard from our autism experts, from Police Sergeant Paul, and our peculiar environments that we're in, you know, how can we do better for our children here? What is in place? Is there anything in place to begin with right now that we as the public can see the police are doing in this area of autism? Is there training happening? Please, we'd love to know how your office is. So sorry about that, everybody. You know, when we talk about topics like this, some people don't want us to talk about these topics. But we know that what we're doing is right. We know what we're doing is God's work. We know that it's important. And when you're doing things that are important, there are always those who are going to come and try and get in your way. So just going on from what Dr. Bose, our Chief Super of Police, has said. Sorry, can you mute Charity? Thank you. Is that, again, it's that sharing of information. The dissemination of information is key. Our police officers are here, and I'm sure they want to know, I'm sure they want to help. They have children, they want to help. So we need to, from what she's saying, since there's nothing being done, some program needs to be done for police officers and training, and the community that they police in this area are wondering. I love what you said about the rescue app, that there's this rescue app that exists, and it's a possibility that getting that as a section on the rescue app for wondering. So there's somewhere immediately people can go and say, okay, my child has wandered, I need to go to the rescue app, I need to press this button and give them all the information and that's necessary, including the picture, where they might be, etc., etc. So we have had quite a rounded discussion, and now I want to bring in the boss. That's our Benona boss. Retired. Are you retired? Are you really retired? I don't believe you're retired. You're too bubbly and too energetic to be retired. But we have to hail you our Air Vice Marshal, you know, for everything you've done in the past, military-wise, but also everything you continue to do. We see you, we love what you're doing to kind of motivate us parents and show us that there's hope, there's things we can actually do. So I'd like to, you sat here, you're munching on something which is making me hungry, and you've listened, and I know you've absorbed this and taken this in. So what do you think of what's been discussed? What do you think we can do in this environment? Because you are a person with that, always looking at practical solutions. So we'd love to hear your take on what's been discussed.
Because I came in a little bit late, because I think about 8 or 10 minutes late, because I was fiddling with the link. First of all, I'd like to say that, there are so many options of getting people to join a program. And sometimes we get so adventurous and we think everybody is up to scratch on some things. And so we give links and we send them by WhatsApp. And if the person's going to join on a laptop, then there's a bit of a problem. But if there is a direct link and password, then they can do it easily and so on. So I had to go through the process of sending it to myself by email and then so on. But that's on the side. I should have done my homework before this morning. But a lot of what I've been said is really quite interesting, and I'm glad to hear parents sharing their experiences, experts / parents like Dr. Akande and yourself sharing their experiences. There's a lot that I've heard that are quite salient. Things like the fact that children wander because they need to get away from something. They need to explore. They need to feel free. Get away. You see, there's a big problem, particularly in this part of the country or the world, as to getting caregivers. And my experience in the US, even when I was much younger, is that in the UK, people who are in the caregiving business are people who they gravitate there because, first of all, they're compassionate. They also have a bit of a problem themselves. My son with cerebral palsy is 27. We had a lady, a nurse, who stayed with us for 11 years. She left last year. And sometimes my wife would get upset, and I used to tell her, don't you notice that she's a bit slow, And she had such a wonderful bond with my son, And that's what it is. A caregiver's job is a passionate job. It's not just something to get a salary. And so if we as parents are not aware of this, we will recruit people who would be nice to the kids in our presence and would be total monsters when we're not there. We've seen a lot of things on video now. I mean, some caregivers have perfected the art of wrapping a towel or something to hit the child in such a way that there'll be no bruises, but there'll be damage under the skin and so on. And so, parents need to make sure that no matter how busy you are, you must spend time with your kids. As a mother, you must look your child over. Having somebody bathe your child can be nice, but you also miss out some points, bruises and stuff that would show you that something is wrong. We have some beautiful examples of how to locate our children. And the most salient point for me is that of knowing your child. Okay. We must take time to bond and know our children. We must, like I said, what do they like? And then places they've been where they show interest. We've seen pictures or videos of autistic people who have photographic memories, who can visit, let's say, a mall once, and from memory draw every intricate details of the inside of that mall. And now, a person like that, no matter how young they are, in the car, driving around, they'll see some things. Or even within if they live in a gated community, they will hear sounds from outside the fence or from a neighbor's house. And they will want to explore. They will want to find out what's that all about. And if we get into the habit of always locking them in the house for their own safety, they are looking for an opportunity. The day we forget to lock the door, that's when they bolt. And once they get out and they're free, they can just continue to wander. We talked about the police. I live in Ajah, and I can tell you that on average, you drive from Ajah to VI, a distance of about 25, 26 kilometers. You'll be lucky if you see 2 or 3 policemen on the road. And the LASMA are only interested in personal cars to get one thing or the other from people. Okay, so the help is not there. we live in an age where even when there's a problem, people are too busy trying to take pictures and record instead of getting involved. And those who have gotten involved will tell you that, let's say there's an accident and you take a patient to a hospital or police, the first thing they want is a police report. And it's like, I'm just trying to help. And you could end up there for hours, you know, not being able to do anything or get anything sorted out. So people have learned to just walk away and not care. So we need to work on our society. We need to work on our population. You know, there's issue of kidnapping going on. There's all kinds of things. So if you see a child like the young man that rode all the way from Chevron to Lekki or somewhere, and you try to stop him and he resists, the next thing you could get is a crowd coming all over you, thinking that, okay, you parked your car and you're trying to kidnap this child. So a lot of advocacy needs to be done. But most importantly, we must understand that that period, that age in Nigeria and Africa, when we say has gone, in the sense that everybody has their own preferred way of taking care of the children. Even sometimes you try to advise a friend and they get upset with you. And it's like, mind your own business, you know? I mean, it's so difficult for you to tell someone that, look, it looks like that your child, there's a problem with your child. Most people are living in denial. You can see it, that, you know, they're just living in denial. And it's so sad, you know, it's like, how do we help somebody who doesn't want to be helped? But most importantly for me, I see, these days, I try to focus on advocacy, and, you know, the Air Force and the military, who are my constituency, have given me platforms to speak to, you know, like in some of the colleges, like Defense College or Resettlement Center in Oshodi. I've spoken to groups of up to 600 or more men and women. But trying to get to a private, to the private sector, whether it's a bank or commercial enterprise, they have a lot of training days when people like us could go there and share some of this valuable information, because really they're the ones who can change the society. They have the resources, they have the networks, they have the content, and you won't believe it. They're only interested in somebody who's come and talk to them about the bottom line. You know, if you're not going to come and motivate their staff to kill themselves to raise more money, they're not interested. Okay. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, those of you who know, I'm an alumni of Lagos Business School. I was on the board for 8 years, but none of the, I mean, the college cannot even give me space to talk about disability, so on. And I've realized that I'm glad I'm seeing all of you here, but there has to be more parents coming out to share their stories, because there are highly educated, influential Nigerians who think this problem just affects a few people. And that's where we have a problem. There are many people, I mean, if you talk to therapists, that's when you know how bad this problem is. But most parents would rather pay a therapist or send a child abroad when they can afford it, and continue to pretend in Nigeria that there's no problem. So I think for the Nigeria police and every security agency that's out there that could help, we must find those at the top and connect with them. And hopefully they'll begin to open doors. Our media, I'd say that they're doing a terrible job. Yes, once in a while they put somebody on TV, but it's like they would just do something on World Autism Day or International Day of Persons with Disabilities. And the rest of the year, I mean, I have stopped appearing on television because all they want after I appear for disability to say, come and talk. Okay. And you keep trying to get them to understand that the problem is there, is very serious. I'd like to close by saying there are also a lot of people in this space who are playing a game, a very dangerous game, because they're only playing for the money. You watch somebody for 5 years and you realize how far they have drifted from what they said they wanted to do in the disability space. And they are now more like celebrities, okay? And they're now just having fun. Of course, they're making some money, but they're having fun. And you're wondering, is this really what this work is about? So we need to begin to find a way to talk to ourselves, to tone down on the celebrity aspect of being a special needs mom, or so on and so forth. And let's hit the nail on the head. Let's take every opportunity to sympathize with those who have not even come out yet, so they'll come out. The more we talk about ourselves, the more people will be inspired. And the more, I know people who have followed me for 8 to 10 years, and suddenly they are beginning to tell their stories. That shows how difficult it is to tell your story, because you must first of all do what I call, accept the situation. Accept the situation, get knowledge, learn about all the issues, then begin to do what I call inclusion in your home, where even the other children are carried along. Everybody who comes to visit, instead of saying, "Oh, what a pity," that's an opportunity for you to say, "No, it's not a pity. It's a situation that we're handling." Many people still say, "You have your child has a, what do you like to say? They like to call it disability as an infection, as a medical problem, and so on, and so on." And even after 27 years, people still ask me, "Is he better?" And I keep saying, he's always been as good as he would be. That's what God wants him to be. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be in this space. So I thank him, I thank God, and I thank him every morning for being there in my life and in the life of my other boys. Okay. So after that, you must begin to now practice disclosure, where you take every opportunity to share your story. And from disclosure, we can now all begin to work on inclusion in the public space, talking about, access, talking about what can be done to make life better. And then, like, Tonya said, these people who are trying to shut down the conversation, trying to disrupt the space, will eventually realize that they're fighting a losing battle. Our children are wonderful specimens of what God can do and what God can use us to do. When you look at social media, you realize that we have failed in this country to tap into the potentials of the special children. A few of them are beginning to come out. We're beginning to see them, but we must encourage a lot more parents to engage them at a very early age, teach them at what space and whatever they can learn. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your knowledge, your sharing, your advice. And you really, I think, hit the nail on the head. We here in Nigeria are often looking abroad to see, okay, what they're doing and trying to, copy and paste. And we're not really looking at where we are here. As you know, what I do, my advocacy is my target market is children, because I can change their mindset from an early age to understand, to empathize, to include our children, to give them a seat at the table. So when they grow, our children get to have their own voice and make their decisions in what society is putting in place for them. They're included. They will have their own voice. So that is how far back we are. We are at the very beginning, where I say advocacy begins at home. How we can target this issue of wandering is to first go through our process as parents. Every parent processes their child's diagnosis differently, and some need more grace than others. But we also need to let them know that time is not our friend on this. And the earlier we tackle and address the issues, You can still be in denial at the same time, but time will still take. Focus on what you can do now for your child. Build that support system. Advocate within your home, within your family and friends. And it has that knock-on effect. We often think, oh, advocacy is this big thing. Oh, we have to have this bank sponsor us to do this advocacy, or we have to go and do some flash stuff. That's really not what advocacy is. Advocacy begins in your everyday life. And that puts the power of this change, of this reduction of wandering of what we want within our hands. We can do something about this just with the people we see every day. And they then go out and tell other people about it. And that's how the advocacy, what we want to see, the results will happen, because people are spreading it virally, word of mouth, person to person, in that street, in that everyday, in that office, in that home, in that play group, within your network. But it takes you as the parents being willing to talk about it, to open up. And some have that ability more than others. Everybody has that journey, but I think we have to have empathy. And we also have to tell each other the truth, you know? So I love everything you said, because it can seem very overwhelming, very grand, and out of reach, but it isn't. It's within us. We have the blessing of living in a technological age. There's information that is available, that's free. There are people that we can get in touch with that may, you know, get back to us, despite the charlatans that we know that are operating here, despite the people who are thinking, oh, this is a money-making scheme. We can take control of the narrative and share within our network and beyond. So I really think that if that's the only thing someone takes away from this, that is something you can do today. You can start today. And it doesn't take any money to do it. You know, it's something that anybody, whatever your socioeconomic strata, can do. But aside from that, we do have practical things that have been going on in the chats that we've talked about here that can happen. We can get the police involved. We can do better with the media. We can do better with our networks. We can get up-to-date pictures of our children. We can list these things and make a folder. We can make a folder of our children's interests, the places they like to go, their sensory issues. All those things can be there, and that can be shared within our network. So if something happens, people have a go-to. These are really practical, low-hanging fruit things we can do without money, with very little technology, that we can do to help. And I think, yes, there is a lot of virtue signaling, as you said, that goes on with a lot of these private sector organizations that take an interest for one day and then they've forgotten it for the rest of the year. But it shouldn't stop us. I think that there are some solutions that we can do to address this. And I just really think, I feel very hopeful after this this conversation. I feel that there is hope. We may be far, but even we can see the UK is still struggling with this, but they're making practical steps to solve it. And I think that's what we have to do, is just start taking these steps within our community, within the medical industry as well, because the medical sector is also an issue with all this as well. With our policing, our government agencies, to kind of sit up and take notes. And I think we can make some strides in this area. As far as I can see, all our questions have been answered in the chat. And so it is just to say our thank yous so much to all our speakers, to all of you who took the time today to join us, to listen, to make your comments in the chat. I do hope you've taken from this some strategies that you can implement. To our speakers, you really have been wonderful. I've just really enjoyed hearing your points of views from each of your areas, your experiences, and the practical tools that you've given us to take home. Thank you, Esther, for sharing your very personal story. I think it's always good for us to hear what happens in reality in our day-to-day lives. And that's it from me, Toye Falugi Ekezie. I'm so happy to have participated in this. I feel privileged to have joined. I hope we can do this again and have some progress, right? To have some news about what is being put in place here in Nigeria. Thank you so much. Our admin, is there anything left? All protocols observed? I believe so. Yes, Yvonne, let's not forget the dads.
Yes.
Dads are in this.
I'm so sorry. I typed that and I quickly just put that in there.
No. Dads are very important. Benola bosses can tell you that.
Please forgive me. I'm so used to dealing with moms that I keep forgetting the dad. I am so sorry. But I'm a mom myself as well, so I know like this is personal to me as well. You know, it's not just actually the group was created because of my daughter. You know, so that's kind of how we started this whole story. And yeah, it's funny because she's an adult now, but you know, and I think she's very sensory based. But I can tell you that she began the wandering at a late age, because I think probably now I think she just wants to be an adult now. That's another conversation for another day. I think maturity also is something to probably look at in future when it comes to wandering, because I mean we're talking about little children. For the adults, they want to be adults. And I have to recognize that she's an adult sometimes. It's very easy to keep looking at them as your babies, but I have to remind myself that she's an adult, you know. So it's an ongoing topic, it's an ongoing conversation. But
it's ongoing, it's fluid, it's absolutely fluid. Nothing is ever set in stone in this journey. We're always looking, we're always assessing, we're always changing the goalposts. And I think that's something that just comes with this kind of parenting. So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your time. Have a wonderful weekend. And we look forward to kind of solving this problem, or at least trying to. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. God bless. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye. Bye.